Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about this little video and the subject that I thought would be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video by that of Mr. AKHi TV. And in this video, what AKHi TV is going to be showing you is his bitterness and, overall how much anger he really has, especially at this dude right here, Mr. Naoya Inoue. And a lot of these new media dudes, they can't stand someone like an Naoya Inoue because right now he's being looked at as one of the top pound for pound fighters. And of course, on some lists, he's over that of a Terrence Bud Crawford, which of course makes them furious because they of course take that as quote unquote disrespect because Terrence Bud Crawford, they just believe that he should be number one pound for pound unanimously and that there really shouldn't be any debate about it whatsoever. Now, what I will personally state is this. Right now, I would have Crawford above Inoue on my pound for pound list because I believe that his resume is better than that of an Inoue's. But in terms of their career, to be quite honest with you, there's really not that much of a difference, especially when you talk about Inoue at this point in time in his career at his current age. Because Terrence Bud Crawford, and I've been stating this for a very long time, AKHi TV and Dante, they'll never admit it or they're too idiotic to realize it. But Terrence Bud Crawford does not have this all-time great level resume. Now, he does have a greater resume now than, of course, what he did several years ago. But like I said, he has about 5 grade level wins. He has Madrimov, debatably. He has Victor Postal, debatably. Yuriorkis Gamboa. He also has that, I believe, Sean Porter and Errol Spence Jr. That Errol Spence Jr. Win, of course, is massive. The Victor Postal win, of course, is a good win. The Madrimov win, of course, is a good win. The Sean Porter win is a good win. And, of course, the Gamboa win, that's a relatively great win. But the problem is that he doesn't have, this Mayweather or Canelo Alvarez or Pacquiao type resume that, many of these channels keep trying to allege that he has. And what I will state is this. In a way, if he's able to get wins over guys, over these three gentlemen within the next few years and still be undefeated, let's say, like if he gets wins over Nick Ball, Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, and Junto Nakatani, his all-around resume is already going to be better than that of a Terrence Bud Crawford's. And I know that certain people are going to disagree with that, but then he would pretty much already have, at least debatably, more A-grade level names or at least more pound-for-pound names on his resume. Because right now, Junto Nakatani, although I'm not quite sure if he would be confirmed on my top 10 pound for pound list personally because I place resume so high, he is getting some recognition on certain lists for being at least on the lower part of the top 10 pound for pound. And of course, Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez would definitely be on my top 10 pound for pound list. And Steve Von Fulton would have been within my top 20 at the time, when, of course, Inoue was able to defeat him. And Nick Ball, I'm not really quite sure where he would be, maybe not even within my top 20 pound for pound, but you can make a legitimate debate that right now that Nick Ball is the best 126 pounder because he had a draw, I believe, against, whatever the hell that one dude, Ray Vargas, I believe his name was, the tall, lanky Mexican dude, at that 126 pound weight class. And then, of course, he was able to beat a very talented fighter by the name of Raymond Ford, who was a black American fighter. Inoue has stated that he wants to fight both Ahmad Ali of this year, MJ, and of course later on Nick Ball, which I think are two amazing fights. But AKHi TV, what he's mainly going to be talking about here is how Inoue apparently coming to America, how the ticket sales are quote unquote dead, which I'm not really super surprised because Inoue, in my view, although he's a superstar in Japan and I'm sure throughout a whole lot of Asia, and they're using, kind of Inoue and also Junto Nakatani, I think, to kind of gain a little bit more fans, maybe from that of the Oriental market. The thing is that, Inoue right now as an American star, he's not really a huge American star for a multitude of reasons. And I don't think that there's, anything really hugely wrong with that. But AKHi TV, of course, and Dante's Boxing Nation, these guys can't stand when someone other than one of their favorite black fighters is looked at as one of the bigger stars in boxing. And listen, I get it to a certain degree because, certain fans or, certain, promoters, they'll state that Inoue is a bigger star over some of these guys, especially to demean that of certain star power of black fighters. But I don't think that, at least a lot of people are at least using that with Inoue, at least to a certain degree. I mean, I could be wrong, but at the end of the day, the thing is that AKHi TV doesn't really have, any room to talk or throw any stones because he lives in a glass house himself. This is the same guy that always loves to tear down Canelo Alvarez's, resume, or, his pay-per-view numbers. Like, that's the first thing these guys always do. If you talk about Gervonta Tank Davis's numbers or Terrence Crawford's numbers, they'll say, why you pocket watching, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. But then when it comes to Canelo or Inoue's numbers, they're the first ones to report if they underwhelm. So these guys are complete hypocrites. But anyways, AKHi TV, let's see what he has to say. Let's get straight into it.
Breaking news of Inoue completely flopping, selling pretty much no tickets. No one wants to watch Inoue in the USA. All of this hype around Inoue by...
Well, I'm not going to say that no one wants to watch Inoue in the USA. But what I will state is that, in a way, that he might have to be promoted a little bit more within the US or take a fight that's going to be a little bit more meaning. The thing is that, in a way, first of all, he's rarely fought in the US. Now, he has fought here a couple of times, I believe. But the thing is that, when you talk about boxers that are very well known, at least in the United States right now, you're talking about guys, maybe like that of a Usyk to a degree, or maybe guys like, Tyson Fury or Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Gervonta Tank Davis. Those are pretty much the guys that we're mainly talking about here that could probably get away with headlining a decent card, within that of the United States. Inoue is, a guy that, of course, is a superstar over there in Asia, in Japan. But there's a multitude of factors that, in my view, would be kind of holding him down. One of those factors, of course, being that he, very rarely does not fight out of Japan. Now, I don't really have a huge problem with that because it's not like a lot of the American fighters don't take advantage and only fight on home soil in America, where they would have the advantage with, the judges as well. So, I mean, I really don't see a huge problem with it. I know that certain people would say that, oh, in a way, he can get away with certain things there, like, no VADA testing, blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently, Inoue has been doing VADA testing for a little bit, and of course, people have brought up the quote-unquote stacking with the hand wraps. What Inoue is doing is not only legal in Japan, it's legal in about 90% of the stadiums and in the places in the U.S. So these people that are bitching are pretty much mainly bitching because they're upset that Inoue is getting pound for pound acclaim, and they really just want him to lose because they realize that he's a threat, to the number one pound for pound spot, and they really just want someone like a Crawford or another black fighter overall to be there. It just is what it is.
Old media lying to the public by telling us Inoue is such a huge superstar all around the world. When he comes to the USA, he's gonna crash the market because he's so huge. This, that, and the third.
Well, I don't really know who's all really been stating that. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe old media has been stating that. I'll give AKHi TV the benefit of the doubt, even though that's very dangerous because he's an idiot. But I mean, it is what it is, and he's very racially charged. So, I mean, you can very rarely trust whatever this man says. But I mean, the thing is that, in a way, in my view, I mean, I can tell you that he's not going to be a big star in the U.S., at least not at the current moment in time. I mean, it's very hard for certain boxers to kind of come here and be very big stars in the U.S. unless you come from certain places, whether that be Britain or, at times Russia, and that's very rare. Oftentimes, Eastern European fighters are not very popular here, but especially Asian boxers. The only Asian boxer that's really, been super successful, within that of the boxing market has really been Manny Pacquiao. And then, there's a multitude of reasons for that because he fought a multitude of great fighters here in the U.S., and on top of that, of course, he knew how to speak English and a multitude of other things as well. He also had a very entertaining style, and of course, a little bit of charisma. Thing is, with Inoue, is that he has a multitude of things kind of working against him. First of all, he's in those lower weight classes. A lot of people do not pay attention to those lower weight classes because they're not looked at as glamour divisions. They're not looked at as divisions that have a great amount of competition. And to a certain degree, people are correct. I don't think that a lot of those weight classes do have a great amount of competition. But one thing that can take Inoue over the top is certain fights like Junto Nakatani or certain fights like Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, especially that Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez fight. Because I assure you that Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, he's starting to get a great following within a lot of the Mexican-American and the Mexican fan bases. Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, they're going to be looking to work through him for the lower weight classes. And that's why, in a way, what I'm going to personally state is this. he's going to have to be very careful where he takes that Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez fight, because very similar to the Golovkin versus, Canelo Alvarez fight, they're not going to be looking to give you that decision. They're not going to be looking to work through an Asian fighter, a Japanese fighter that doesn't speak a lick of English. And on top of that, although in a way, he's a very charismatic fighter in terms of in the ring, he's an excellent watch. I don't really know how much charisma he actually has outside the ring. And it's a little bit hard to tell because he doesn't really speak any English. So, I mean, the thing is, but Inoue doesn't really come across to me as someone that is very boisterous or someone that is very, someone overall that is very loquacious. He's someone that, overall is a little bit more silent, someone that is a little bit more humble and meek. And, that's very regular a lot of the times with the Japanese culture and Japanese fighter or athletes. I've seen that within a multitude of the Japanese athletes, but that's all that's going to work against him to a certain degree. And even if he does beat the shit out of Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez or other guys here, he still may not ever be as big of a star as other guys. There's just certain things that you have to have. Inoue is a great level talent, an all-time great level talent in my personal view. But when you talk about star power, that's a rare combination where you have quote unquote star power combined with that of great skills. Even the great Terrence Bud Crawford does not have really that great a star power. And AKHi TV cannot like that all he wants to. There's a reason why a lot of the pay-per-views that Crawford has done have underwhelmed, even in the quote-unquote fight of the decade. Anyways,
Well,
the quote-unquote fight of the decade with Errol Spence.
reality hit. In reality, the moment Inoue is coming to the USA, he's struggling to sell few tickets, according to reports. And this is
And I'm not surprised, because at the end of the day, no one knows who the hell his opponent is. I'm not really quite sure who he is. Now, apparently he was a former champion, but this pretty much is a lamb for the slaughter. At the end of the day, this is not really a fight that anyone would be interested in. You're going to have to fight someone that is a little bit more interested. Now, of course, Inoue tried to fight an undefeated Mexican fighter, I believe. Not anyone that was very well known, but someone that would have been a decent opponent. But of course, he ended up pretty much pricing himself out. And Inoue basically said, no, we're not doing that. So, of course, this is kind of to get him, in the taste of certain mouths of the U.S. fan base, so then he can take on his next fights and then get promoted a little bit better. Then, of course, he said that, the remainder fights that he's going to take this year is going to be against Nick Ball and MJ Akhmadaliev. Now, remember, AKHi TV has stated that Inoue has been ducking Akhmadaliev. That's what Dante and AKHi TV have been stating. So, what it means is that if Inoue beats Akhmadaliev or whatever his name is, MJ, that means that Inoue is going to get A grade level credit, right? We all know that's not going to happen.
reported by old media, who love the hell out of Inoue, who has been hyping up Inoue. This is according to an old media wizard, Ricky Glazer. He said, quote, told by multiple sources, Inoue tickets at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas May 4th on ESPN are totally dead. So dead that tickets should be given last rights. And Team Inoue isn't happy about the promotional flop. The promoter, none other than Top Rank. That's boxing at Top Rank nowadays. End of the quote. This is the same guy who has been reporting by literally preying on PBC downfall, saying things like PBC will leave boxing because they are going broke. All because Al Heyman is black. That's how racist this guy is.
Well, I need to see if that's really the case, because, once again, I can't trust anything that AKHi TV says. Once again, he's like a feminist woman. A feminist woman overall will allege that, a man is a quote-unquote misogynist, or that they quote-unquote hate women just because of something doesn't go right for her that day. AKHi TV is the same thing. He'll allege racism over any stupid-ass shit. So you can't trust anything that he says.
He never said the same things about Top Rank that he said about PBC. All because PBC deal with Showtime was over. Well, Top Rank deal with ESPN is over. And Rick Glazer...
Well, didn't you do the same shit? Like, once again, AKHi TV and these guys, they sure talk a whole lot of shit for having some of the biggest hypocritical points within the whole boxing game. Like, AKHi TV and Dante's Boxing Nation, these guys were the same guys that were cheering, when Top Rank and, HBO Boxing, didn't re-sign with Top Rank Boxing, and they were basically laughing in their face. But then as soon as Showtime, got cut off, I believe, out of the PBC, then they wanted everyone to say like, oh, well, aren't you boxing fans? Why would you be happy about that? Well, because you were talking all this shit, so I mean, it is what it is.
One of the most racist reporters in boxing said in
AKHi TV, give it a fucking rest. No, well, you could have Adolf Hitler over, or you could have the Ku Klux Klan. AKHi TV, there are no more racist boxing commentators than AKHi TV or Dante's Boxing Nation. Period.
he thinks similar about Top Rank like he did to PBC, even though they are in the same shoes. Even worse, at least PBC has a network in Amazon Prime. And the moment Top Rank joins PBC by working hand to hand, Bob Arum said that they're going to be working hand to hand with Al Heyman to make future events. All of a sudden, that's when Rick Glazer wanted to diss Top Rank, since they are associated with PBC. But he only did it to defend a fighter from the Hope List. It's bad when one of the old media wizards is exposing Inoue for his poor ticket sales to the point where he said the ticket sales are dead. They are not moving at all. The tickets have no motion. They are not selling to the point. We are a month away, and they are already talking about giving tickets away. So if they end up selling the fight, we know what time it is. They gave out the entire arena. I mean, who talks about giving away tickets this far away from the fight? That's how poor the ticket sales are.
And listen, I do agree slightly with AKHi TV there. At the end of the day, in a way, there's going to be certain things to where if he becomes a big star in that of boxing, that they're just going to have to promote him a little bit better, or they're going to have to set him up some fights within that of the United States, and fights that people actually know. But the thing is that a lot of the opponents that Inoue is gonna, be lining up the fight, a lot of the United States people, they're not gonna know who the fuck those guys are. Like, Inoue could fight MJ next, which I believe that he's more than likely going to. The US and the United States fans aren't gonna know who the fuck that guy is. People aren't really gonna tune into that fight because even though that's a very good fight, a lot of people don't know who the hell that guy is. So in order for Inoue, to really get some traction in the United States, if he plans to fight here, of course, there's Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, but he's going to have to fight someone from Mexico or Britain. A great fight, if he really wants to have a great debut here, would be against Nick Ball. Because, of course, he's from Britain. And not only would that do great in the U.S., in my view, but, of course, you would have a little bit of a British fan base. And Nick Ball's a little bit known recently because, he got a couple of wins, but especially that great win over Raymond Ford, the very decent, very talented Black American fighter.
Might as well cancel the event. But since Turkey got money like that, remember, he got Ryan, Devin, Tio, Canelo, and Inoue fighting on the same week, on 3 different days. Knowing Turkey, he's going to give those tickets away to charity, especially when the people from the USA are not willing to pay to see Inoue. Yeah, the race fans are going to stay on code and be keyboard warriors, but that's about it. You best believe the race fans are not that naive to pay for this cherry pick and spend their hard-earning money to watch this.
You notice that AKHi TV lately keeps calling Inoue a cherry picker. Now you notice that once upon a time they were a little bit more respectful towards Naoya Inoue just about a year ago after he defeated Steve Von Fulton, and they were claiming, well, Inoue still needs to prove himself, even though, of course, they don't have those same standards for other fighters that, of course, they're rooting for. But now they're going into desperation mode and saying overall that Inoue is a quote-unquote cherry picker. Why are they doing that? Because one of their standards is that you can't be number 1 pound for pound on our list if you're a quote-unquote cherry picker. I have no idea how Inoue would be a cherry picker when he's fought everyone within his weight classes that everyone has asked him to fight. Other than MJ, but at the end of the day, I can't really go after Inoue that badly over that because MJ had the opportunity to get the Inoue fight and he fucked it up by losing to Marlon Tapales. So Inoue had to fight the guy who was the better man out of that fight, and it was Marlon Tapales.
Cherry picked by Inoue, just like his fight before that and the fight before that. and pretty much
Well, you can't really call those cherry picks when Inoue is pretty much fighting the best guys that are available. Now, what we can say is that, some of those guys that, maybe they're not, of the utmost caliber, if we want to state that. But Inoue's pretty much fought everybody that he's needed to, and he's moved up 4 weight classes. So I don't really. And then on top of that, Inoue has claimed that he wants to fight that of both Nick Ball, who is debatably the best 126-pounder out there right now, and then on top of that, also the other guy, I believe, what's his name, MJ, the guy that AKHi TV, even within the past couple days, has stated that Inoue is avoiding, but he won't mention how Inoue has stated like several times that he's fighting him this year. Anyway,
that's Inoue's entire career, is him fighting nobodies, cherry picks that no one wants.
well, I'm not going to claim that Inoue overall has fought a whole bunch of nobodies. What I will state is that he has fought a lot of fighters that I would not claim would be A grade. Now, the A grade level wins in his career, in my view, I would maybe state Steven Fulton for sure. Donaire, it's a debate, but I mean, if you were to classify that as B grade at the time, I would understand because Donaire was older and definitely more on the downside of it. But of course, at that weight class, he had kind of reinvigorated himself because he had won a couple of belts, I believe, at that time, or a belt, and defeated a couple of very good undefeated contenders in that weight class. So, I mean, it's kind of up to you. But I would understand if you would say it was a B grade level win. I would also state that the Marlon DePaulis one, in my view, is about an A minus level win. Because MJ is a very talented fighter, and Marlon DePaulis was able to defeat him. So I would not underestimate that win. But anyway. And then, of course, you have debatably Louis Neri. But, that's up to you.
And avoids the fights that the fans want to see.
Right, but what fights has he really been avoiding, AKHi TV? Other than debatably MJ, but like I said, Inoue has already stated that he's going to fight him this year. So what's the problem?
You guys heard what Rick Glazer said, that this is Top Rank fault because they are not promoting Inoue how they are supposed to. Inoue team said they are mad and upset at the poor promotion. Man, get this BS out of here.
Isn't it very interesting overall how with Terrence Bud Crawford, the reason why he wasn't doing good numbers, at least according to these guys, is because Top Rank was not promoting him in the right way, and Bob Arum was, not treating his black fighters well enough, which, there may be a little bit of truth to that, but isn't it so interesting how they blame Bob Arum and Top Rank completely, but then when it comes to Inoue, they blame nothing but Inoue? It's very interesting what standards they have depending on the race of fighter.
Bob already said that he believes Inoue is greater than Manny Pacquiao. Trust me, Bob Arum can't do anything more than that to try to...
Right, so just because he says that Inoue is greater than Manny Pacquiao, that totally means that, many of the fans that they're going to acclimate to Inoue and just watch his next fight. AKHi TV never has any idea what the fuck he's talking about. Like, this dude is such a pea brain.
...to sell Inoue in the States. Simply, the people have spoken and they do not care to watch Inoue for their dollar.
Right, but dude, Inoue is going to have to build himself a little bit more in the U.S. You can't just take one fight, especially against a guy that nobody wants to see, and just judge his complete potential star power. We're going to have to see it a little bit later on down the line. Right now, Inoue, in terms of his worldwide star power, it's only just beginning. So we're going to have to see overall how he does a little bit later on. Now, is Inoue, of course, a bigger star than, say, guys like Devonta Tank Davis worldwide or Canelo Alvarez or certain guys like that? No, of course not. But the thing is that, give Inoue a little bit of time.
In return? Hell no. Why? When this man Inoue is literally cherry picking disrespectfully.
Okay, if I can keep shooting this thing, it'll roll back right over them. But they kind of push it towards me, which makes me kind of nervous. So let me see if I can get a few more guys.
Respectfully, I will feel disrespected to spend my money to watch Inoue for the cherry pick he selected because I don't even remember the cherry pick name.
No, you only want to watch Terrence Crawford fight cherry picks or fight his bums that he fought at welterweight. But, if it's not a black fighter, then he's off your list. Ain't that right, AKHi TV?
Just like I don't remember the cherry pick Inoue selected the fight before that and the fight before that. That has been the story for Inoue's entire career.
No, the story of Inoue's career is that he's pretty much done the best that he can to get every name around his weight classes, but there's just not that much of a sample size of his weight classes. It was very similar with Terrence Bud Crawford. It just is what it is. But the thing is with Terrence Bud Crawford with AKHi TV is that he'll try to allege that Crawford was fighting killers within these weight classes. He's not. And that's why I say that Inoue and Crawford's career that they're a little bit more similar than what people really want to let on. But, it is what it is. But Inoue, of course, a very talented fighter, very great fighter. But if he fights MJ this year and, of course, Nick Ball, which is what he said he was going to do, then, of course, assuming that he wins both of those fights, and there's no guarantee, you never know, especially with the Nick Ball fight, because Ball will be bigger than Inoue significantly, in my view. At least in terms of the girth, then, if Inoue is able to beat both of those guys, it's going to add on. So we'll see. But anyway.
Fighting cherry picks that no one knew or cares about. The only fight that was for real was Fulton recently. Other than that, the man fought nobody. Let's be real. So instead of Rick Glazer and Inoue team blaming Top Rank for the poor promotion as the reason why Inoue is not selling in the USA, well, let me give you the bad news. Top Rank can spend over $1 billion in promotion to promote this cherry pick by Inoue.
Now this is the guy. I believe that his name is Rafael Espinoza, a Mexican fighter at the 126-pound weight class. AKHi TV and Dante's Boxing Nation have been pushing Inoue to fight this guy now for a while. Now, what you would think is that they would say, because allegedly what they believe, always is that, that the black fighters are always the best, even if it's not completely proven overall within that weight class. And I've always stated this, black fighters within boxing usually have been, the most talented, or the American black fighters. A lot of them have usually been the most talented, and a lot of them overall have been the hardest to defeat. Absolutely. That's why you have guys like Crawford, Mayweather, etc. But the thing is that, Raymond Ford, who was a black American fighter, he recently just got defeated by Nick Ball, who's an English fighter. Wouldn't you want Inoue to fight Nick Ball, who's debatably the best 126-pounder there right now? A guy who just got a win over a great black American fighter by Raymond Ford, But instead they want Inoue to fight this guy. This Mexican guy that, let's be honest, they've never fucking watched before, or that they've barely watched before. Very interesting. And could that be because, you realize that Rafael Espinoza, that he's super big for the 126-pound weight class at 6'1" with a 74-inch arm reach, and Inoue is a guy that has a 67-inch arm reach and is about 5'6". Could it be that? Interesting.
And
that Inoue would be massively outsized, and that if Inoue ends up losing to Espinoza, you can just state about how overrated Inoue is.
Tickets won't sell in the USA. That's the truth. The reason why is because the USA is a competitive market. For you to be able to sell, you have to give the fans something worth their wow. Something worth their money wow. You can't just give them a cherry pick that you have been cherry picking in Japan and selling out over there. It doesn't work the same way over here. Now, if Inoue was...
Well, I agree, because, you can't overall just, adopt yourself to Japan the whole entire time and then come to the U.S. over a fighter that's not really that well known and just expect, all the fans, pretty much to graduate or, to come towards you. It's not gonna, it's not gonna work that way. He's gonna have to fight someone that is well known. Now, I think the best fight for that is probably Nick Ball.
Fighting real competition, then perhaps he can sell. If he would have had...
Or a fight that would be very interesting to see Inoue in next, a fight that might actually get his promotion a little bit more up, would be against Brandon Figueroa. Who of course recently lost to Steven Fulton, but as a former, two-weight division champion, someone that of course just recently lost to Fulton, it would be a very entertaining fight. He has a very good Mexican and Mexican-American fan base. That would be a great start for Inoue to try and really get the seed in order to grow his fan base here.
Over here to fight Espinoza at 126 for the title, or at least Shushu, a fighter like that, then...
Once again, notice the two fighters that they just recently named. Inoue has already stated that he plans to fight Nick Ball this year. a guy that right now I would have to claim is the best 126 pounder because he had a draw against Ray Vargas and he just recently beat Raymond Ford. So why is Nick Ball not counted as, the number one guy? Why is AKHi TV not happy with the Nick Ball fight? Could it be because Inoue and Ball, height and reach wise, they have similar dimensions and Inoue could very possibly win that fight? But you know that Rafael Espinoza, because of his massive size for that weight class, at 6'1" with 74 inches, having like what, a 7-inch reach advantage over Inoue, and on top of that, out lengthening him or out heighting him by several inches as well. You know that Espinoza has a very good chance to win that fight because he's so much bigger and lengthier. Interesting. And then, of course, he brings up Bruce Carrington because Bruce Carrington, of course, is a great black fighter on the rise within those weight classes. So notice the two fighters that he brings up is one that massively outsizes Inoue, the biggest guy there, and it's not even close. And then the other one that he mentions is a black fighter to where, of course, Shushu is not a champion yet, but it wouldn't matter because at least Shushu would be getting a title opportunity. So then AKHi TV can just talk shit to where if Inoue does beat Bruce Carrington, you just say, oh, well, Bruce Carrington was a bit green or he wasn't a champion yet. So AKHi TV is just talking shit.
He will sell. At least he will sell some tickets. I'm not sure if he's going to sell out the arena, but
Rafael Espinoza is from Mexico. And on top of that, I've never seen Rafael Espinoza in a fight. I've never once seen any of his promoted fights. So if AKHi TV was really concerned and saying, well, give a product that the fight fans really want to see, wouldn't he say Nick Ball? Because Nick Ball, once again, just ended up defeating Raymond Ford, who was a black American fighter. Remember, AKHi TV and Dante, they always claim, overall that, the black fighters are the most talented, and that's why a lot of these non-black fighters avoid them. Right, well, Nick Ball just defeated him. So wouldn't it make the most logical sense for Inoue to fight Nick Ball next? A guy who's also from Britain, a guy that is heavily promotable, a guy that also speaks English, and a guy that has a little bit of a personality as well. This guy right here, no one's ever seen him fight. So you got to ask yourself the question, how come AKHi TV and Dante keep promoting this guy? Overall, Dante and AKHi TV are known to not like Mexican fighters, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere, this dude, Rafael Espinoza, no one's ever really seen him fight before, but this is the guy that they want Inoue to fight next. Wonder why that is. Once again, could it be because of his massive height, reach, and weight advantage?
he will sell better tickets than for the cherry he selected. That's the truth about Inoue flopping in the USA. You're not a superstar. You are not a real star until you are a star in the USA, which Inoue is not.
Well, Inoue is a star in Japan and in Asia. But the thing is that in order for him to be a star within that of the United States, he is going to have to fight certain guys that people know. But what I will state is this. Even if he takes on good fights like against Ahmed Ali, people are not going to know who the fuck that is. So, I mean, people, that's not going to do great promotion in the United States. But Bruce Shushu Carrington, that is a fight that would do very well. But I think in order for that to happen, Bruce Carrington is going to have to become a champion first. If Inoue were to become bigger here in the United States, great fights for him would be Brandon Figueroa, Nick Ball, maybe a Steven Fold rematch, eventually Bruce Shushu Carrington, some of those fights.
Really is not, which Inoue team can't.
Rafael Espinoza is not, a fight that would do particularly well in the United States, at least not until Inoue or Espinoza would be a little bit more well known. Because Espinoza is a guy that, I don't even hear a whole lot of Mexican fans talk about him.
Blame anybody. They can't blame Top Rank for this. However, who they can blame is the people in the mirror. Also, Inoue can blame himself for this cherry he selected. Like, who the hell you fighting, man? I told you guys, every time Inoue has fought recently, outside of the Fulton fight, I'm talking about nearly all of his fights, his fight buzz will die down. Not the next day. His buzz will die down literally the next hour. Everyone in the world.
Which is the same thing with Terrence Bud Crawford. But the way that AKHi TV overall will tell you is that, Crawford, he was a guy that, overall everyone was watching his fights. It's just that people were hating on him. It was all their bullshit. No, Terrence Bud Crawford's results have also been shown. Crawford is not the biggest star either.
Well, stop talking about Inoue. The next hour, he finishes his cherry. With the opinions out of the door and the facts laid out on the table, go ahead and drop your thoughts.
Oh, please. But anyways, that pretty much is about it for that video. I just thought that would be very particularly interesting, but thank y'all so much for watching. But once again, very interesting how Inoue, or excuse me, how AKHi TV wants Inoue, you know, overall to fight that Steven or that Rafael Espinoza guy next. Isn't that interesting? Not Nick Ball, not the guy that just defeated the great Black American, or the very good Black American, you know, talented fighter, Ray Ford, the guy that's from Britain that has a, you know, a decent following right now. No, he wants him to fight Rafael Espinoza. Wonder why that is. But anyways, you know, we'll see what ends up happening. But that pretty much is about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.